And the board has this blue sky side. That's the easy side. And then it has, oh, I forgot I put those on there. Oh, no. Oh, so many pieces. Well, there's a hard side. The hard side has a red top. Aren't you glad you know that now?
3, 2, 1, throw.
What is up, everybody? My name is Nick Murphy. I'm one half of the Brothers Murph, and this is Board Game Highlight. Board Game Highlight is a series where Mike or I takes a game on the shelf here behind us and we highlight it for you. Now, what that really means is that we're going to take it, we're going to open it up, talk about why we love it, a little bit about the gameplay, but mostly it's why we love it and why it's on this shelf here behind us. This week, we're going to talk about, boom, Clank. This box is heavy because we have a whole bunch of Clank. Clank is a deck building adventure. It says so right here, a deck building adventure.
I'm going on an adventure.
That's right, Bilbo. Although this isn't about Lord of the Rings, but it is in a fantasy setting, so the clip worked. Clank is a deck building game, and it's a lot of a push your luck kind of game. You're gonna be delving down into a dungeon, trying to grab as much treasure and loot as you possibly can, and at the end of the game, whoever has the most points in terms of treasure wins the whole thing. The problem is there's a big scary dragon or a big scary spider in one of the situations down there, and you are going to be making noise and trying to avoid the dragon. The problem is the more noise you make, the more you're attracting the dragon. And that's not good because you can die. But Clank is a really wonderful game with a great theme and just a great straightforward deck building mechanic that works on so many different levels. So let's get it down to a table. Let's open it up a little bit and see why we love it so much. Clank, 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 clank. Stop it. So as I said, Clank is a deck building game. You thought I was going to continue with the clank, clank, clank stuff. You're wrong. Now I want to clarify right now that we are talking about Clank, the normal version, not Clank in Space. Clank in Space is essentially a sequel-ish to Clank. The games play very, very, very similarly. Clank in Space has a modular board. It's set in a sci-fi world instead of a fantasy world. There's like different factions you can use. If you have this faction, it will trigger this card of this faction, that kind of stuff. This game doesn't have that. We have played Clank in Space before. We really like Clank in Space. We just don't have it because we already have Clank and we're kind of already collecting Clank. And so we didn't feel the need to get essentially a second Clank game. Even though they are different enough where I think it warrants having them, we just didn't really feel the need to get both. And in the end, we're more into the fantasy theme than the sci-fi theme in general, and so there's also that a little bit as well. But I will say, Clank in Space has way better fan service. Clank in Space is a sci-fi game, and on the cards, all the different characters of the cards you can get, every single one almost is like a dope sci-fi throwback to a different sci-fi movie or book or whatever. It's got everything. It's got Back to the Future, it's got Doctor Who, and it has the greatest character ever created, Ruby Rhod from Fifth Element. Come on, man. I don't know if I follow you, Smoke. Oh, I love Ruby Rhod so much. There's a woman at Gen Con dressed up as Ruby Rhod for cosplay, and I almost asked her to marry me on the spot because Ruby Rhod is the greatest character ever made. Ruby Rhod is the greatest character ever made. But nonetheless, we're talking about normal Clank. But everything I'm saying for normal Clank can also apply to Clank in Space. So this is a pretty good review of both, to be completely honest. So let's go ahead and open this extremely heavy box up. And it is extremely heavy because we have, as you can see, lots of different Clank. We have the base game, we have the Sunken Treasures expansion, the Cursed Mummy or the Mummy's Curse expansion, and the brand new Gen Con release, Clank Expeditions Gold and Silk. I'm not going to go into all the differences and all the different expansions and stuff like that, but I will point out little things here and there that are different. Ultimately, they play very, very much the same. There might be different cards. There's always a different board. But for the most part, in expansion, you can kind of just throw it in. You can teach anyone the expansion. It doesn't really make a difference. But as you can see, we have lots and lots and lots of Clank. Alrighty, well, this is the general setup for Clank. So you can see here's the Clank board right here. So on the board, you can see there's a whole bunch of different spots. There's all these different spots and all these little paths that go to those little spots. So throughout the game, you are playing your cards in your hand to do certain things on the boards. The three things you can do for the most part is you can move, or you can attack stuff, or you can buy more cards here from the open market. Again, the expansions make things a little bit different. A lot of times they give you a lot more cards, but one thing they all have in common is they have their own board. And all of these have their easier sides and their harder sides. This is the Sunken Treasures one. This is the Mummy's Curse one, which is super cool because it's actually on a diagonal on the easier side, and then the harder side is normal like this. But this is the Mummy's Curse one, and then this is the brand new Expeditions Sugar and Silk. What is it? Expeditions Gold and Silk. It's got the easier side and then the harder side over here with all the webs. Look at all the webs. I don't like spiders. Who does though? Does anyone like spiders? Someone out there is like, oh, I like spiders. Afraid not. Afraid not, friend. So on your turn, you're going to draw 5 of your cards. Everyone starts with the same basic deck, which is like a lot of deck builders. And again, you can do things like buy new cards, which is this little diamond right here allows you to buy cards. You can use boots to move around, or you can use swords, which you can see right here, to attack different monsters that are here in the deeps. But the problem is, down in the deeps, there is a dragon! Is that dramatic enough? And depending on the game, there's different dragons. Like this is the normal dragon. And then this one right here is the famed Gold Dragon. The Gold Dragon also came along with this. This is a specialized Gold Dragon that you get if you win a Clank tournament at a convention somewhere, which Mike and I were at Strategicon, and we entered in a Clank tournament, and Mike won that Clank tournament. Do not ask him about it. He will not stop talking about it. On Mike's first place ribbon for the game he won of this, he wrote Mike the Man Murph, Clank champion. Oh, Mike's so good at Clank. Oh, good for him. So one thing I love about this game is the push your luck aspect of it. You're doing the normal deck building stuff. You're buying new cards. The cards go into your discard pile, and then eventually you'll shuffle back through like any old deck builder. But what I really, really love is this one adds a whole board to it. And that's one thing a lot of deck builders don't. There's a board in a game like Legendary, but the board is really there just to hold the cards. You could actually play a game without the board, and it would make no difference at all. This one would, though. You really, really need the board to play the game. And I think that's interesting. I think that's really, really lovely when a deck builder does that. I think it really takes deck building to the next level. And I think Clank is a really good example of that. So you're moving around the board. There's a whole bunch of stuff all over the board. But mostly what you're trying to do is get treasure. There's a couple different things that give you treasure. There's just straight up money. Each one is 1 point at the end of the game. So you get points through coins. You also get points through victory points on your cards. This little green number up here is a victory point to your cards. And then the last thing is to get artifacts. Artifacts are these hexagonal spaces right here, which are different big treasures. There's golden bananas and beautiful rings like Mike's Indulgence ring. And those are all worth points. Some are worth more than others. The 3 most are 20, 25, and 30 here, but they're at the very bottom of the dungeon. Should you go all the way down there to get that? And that's up to you, and that's what's so fun. How deep do you want to delve down into the dungeon? Because as I said earlier, you can die in this game. But the thing is, just because you die and you're eliminated from the game doesn't necessarily mean you lose. And that is huge. That is absolutely massive, because I'm not a big fan of player elimination in games, especially a game that's like this, which is relatively lengthy. Because you can see there's this beautiful bright green grass line along the middle of the board here. That's kind of like the castle, and then the dungeon is beneath it. So all the really good stuff, all of the artifacts are all in the deeps. They're all in the dungeon, the second half of the board on the bottom here. But the thing is if you go down into the deeps and you die there, you're out of the game. You can't score, you can't do anything. But if you happen to die above the grass line, you die, but you still get to count all your points. You get to count all the points from all the treasure you found, from the artifacts, from your cards, all that stuff you still get to count. And I would say it's about 50-50 of whether or not you get all the way back out of the dungeon or you die in the dungeon in the top part, it's about 50-50 over who wins. Because the people who tend to stay in the dungeon but die in there have more time to grab loot. Because once your person comes in, all the way down, grabs the stuff, comes all the way back out, your turns are done. You don't do anything else really. And so you are not grabbing more and more loot. If someone jumps out of the castle early, what I try to do is just grab as much loot as I can. Don't even worry about getting out of the castle. Just grab as much treasure and loot as I possibly can, and then die valiantly in the castle defending, I don't know, the butler against the dragon. Yeah, that makes sense. And try to win that way. And I would say that works just as often as not. Now, one of the main criticisms people have of this game is one that, in my opinion, is relatively unfounded. People can do a smash grab job in this game. They can run down, grab the nearest artifact, jump back out. When you get out, you get a mastery token, which is worth 20 points. So it does behoove you to get out. Once the first person leaves the castle, that triggers the end of the game. So when it comes around to that person's turn again, they're going to move here. And then they're going to move here on their next turn, then move here, and then they move here. And once they move here, the game is over. Everyone inside the board still dies, and then we count points. So the thing is, what a lot of people argue is that you can just run in, grab the quickest thing, and then come out and then essentially collapse the dungeon on people and win that way. But here's the thing. I've never actually seen it happen. I've seen people try, but I've never seen anyone succeed. And it comes down to my previous point. If I know that I'm not going to make it out of the dungeon, I just try and grab as much loot as humanly possible. And if you come into a smash grab job, you probably don't have that many points. You didn't get very much treasure. You got a pretty weak artifact. And then you got your 20 points for getting out, but 20 points in this game is not that much. And so the smash grab job just doesn't really win. So in my personal opinion, that's not that much of a con of the game, because in my opinion, it doesn't really work very often. And then you just have a really short, not very exciting game. The fun of this game is pushing your luck. The fun of this game is going down as far as you possibly can, grabbing it, and then just being like, can I possibly get out in time? Because it's so much fun to tempt the dragon. Now, how do you tempt the dragon? The game is called Clank, and one thing I love about the game so much is the Clank mechanic. Clank is these little cubes right here. These are your Clank. Oops. These are your Clank. Whenever a card says you make Clank, what essentially that is you banging into stuff. You're like walking down the corridor all slow, like, gonna steal some super cool stuff, dude. But then you trip over a crack and you slam into a wall and you're like, clank, clank! And that causes noise. And whenever you make a noise, you have to put one of your Clank cubes up here in the Clank spot. And then as you're making noise, you're adding more and more and more Clank, more and more noise that you're making. Hello, dragon, where are you, you stupid bastard? But the dragon doesn't like that. So what happens is periodically throughout the game, the dragon is going to attack all of the different players. So how the dragon attacks is on your turn. If you buy a car from the dungeon row here, one will replace it at the end of your turn. If that one has this little dragon attack symbol on it, that means the dragon gonna attack. So then what happens is you take this dragon bag. This dragon bag has 24 black cubes inside of it. You take all the cubes from the Clank area of all colors, not just the person whose turn it is, and then you give the bag a little shake. Shake, shake, shake. Shake, shake, shake. Shake your dragon. Shake your dragon. And then depending on where the dragon is on this track, you're going to draw that many cubes out of the bag. So here it is, straight up luck. And I usually hate luck in games, but I love this one because that's the whole point, is it's pushing your luck. How much Clank do you think you can make? Do you think you can go that far down in here and then drawing out this many, and all of a sudden, boom, I just got hit 3 times. So you draw, and then any black cubes essentially are neutral. They don't hurt anybody. They're just there to clog up the bag. But then the black cubes go out of the game. So the thing is, there's less and less and less black cubes in this bag after every time they get taken out. So there's more and more of my cubes and Mike cubes, and it gets real scary. Any cubes that get pulled out, that's the dragon hitting you. You put them on your little health track right here. If you ever fill this bing bong all the way up to the skull, you are dead. And I love that mechanic. I love the Clank mechanic because it's so much fun and it adds so much suspense to the game. Because here's the thing, it's just a random draw out of the bag. Mike could have 20 cubes in there and just be clanking stuff up the whole dang time. And I have like 3. And what happens? I draw 3 of my cubes and then 1 black cube, and Mike is fine. There are some standing above the tables, yes, yes, yes moments in this game when you know you have 4 times as many cubes in there, and for some reason, none of yours get pulled. And you're right here, and you're like, yes, and you get some boots on the cards, and you're like, I'm moving, boom, 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 and you make it out of the deeps. So you know, next time when 17 of your dang cubes get pulled, you just get straight eaten alive by a giant spider or a golden dragon or whatever, you know you can still count in the game and that you can potentially still win. But this is one of those games that I really don't care about the outcome. Don't get me wrong, I love winning. Everyone loves winning. But it's just so much fun to try and see what you can go for. And that excitement, that not really knowing, is what makes the game so great, because there's a ton of strategy in the game. There's all sorts of strategy, but at the same time, the dragon might rip your head off. And the cards are great, and there are a ton of them. And they combo, and they do certain things. And so if you play this card, then you can trigger this card, and you can do this over here, and then you can go here. And you do all this different stuff. All of that is so, so great, and it's so well integrated into this game, where if we only had this, no new cards, no new boards, nothing else, I would be totally content forever just playing this, because there's so much fun to be had in this wonderful deck building adventure. As much as I hate really long titles like that, this game is 100% accurate. So that is why we love Clank. Clank last year was ranked as Mike's favorite game in the whole world, and it was in my top 10. It is an absolute blast. We really like deck builders here at the Brothers Murph, and we really like push your luck games. And this is one of those push your luck games that's not light, not quick like a lot of push your duck, like a lot of push your luck games. It's got strategy. There's different strategies you can go for. There's choices and thinking and all this kind of stuff put into a really wonderful game that is just so tense and so suspenseful and absolutely wonderful. So please, down in the comments, let me know what you think about Clank. Do you like it a lot? Do you prefer Clank in space over normal Clank? Do you have any expansions? Do you have a favorite expansion? Let me know down in the comments all things and everything Clank. So please remember to like and share this video. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube, we're the Brothers Murph, and this is our YouTube channel. We put up a new board game highlight every single Wednesday, so hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. So until next time, you've been checking out Clank, a deck building adventure with me here on Board Game Highlight. Have a good one.
Now, we all know that Nick is the artist, but I'll bet you I can sketch you right now. And while I'm doing this amazing sketch, check out Restoration Games. They sponsor us, and there's information for where to find their games, not illustrations, down below. And this has gone off the rail. I'm so sorry. You are way more beautiful than that. But go ahead and click over another video. I fail.